it's accepting it. We're going to get right into it. There's going to be lots to explain. Unlike RTA, TAS timing is actually starting on power on, and it's going to start in 3, 2... Sure. Alrighty, I'm strizer86. I'm here to close out our Castlevania block here with a Castlevania Chronicles original mode TAS. I know we're trying to get things back on schedule, and there's a lot to explain, so I'm going to get right into it. It's a little bit different in terms of start time. TAS timing actually starts at power on, and it's going to start in 3, 2, 1, go. Alrighty. So Castlevania Chronicles, the much lesser known PlayStation Castlevania title. It's often overlooked because of Symphony of the Night, which we all know and love Symphony of the Night. It actually differs quite a bit. It's a typical side-scrolling platformer. There's no RPG elements to it, anything like that. We're going to rush right through the intro here. This is an original mode TAS. So there's 2 modes included in the game. There's original mode, and there's also arranged mode. Arranged mode essentially is kind of like an easier mode, if you will. It has different available difficulties available in the options for it. But there's things like no knockback to provide a little more leniency. Stuff doesn't do quite as much damage. And you have a 3-frame window to jump after walking off a ledge. But we're going original mode for a couple different reasons. We're going original mode because damage boosts, essentially. And there wasn't an original mode TAS in existence prior. I'd watched an arranged mode TAS, which kind of served as the inspiration for this. Stage 1 is going to be very RTA-esque in the sense that all of these strats are actually going to be RTA viable, but there's some nuance here that I can go over, and it's going to impact the rest of the run as well. So for example, when you do a horizontal jump, it actually loses 2 frames of horizontal movement. So anytime that you're moving horizontally here, you're going to want to minimize your jumps. So what's happening in stage 1 is you're either jumping over or killing certain enemies to impact further spawns and reduce further jumps, and just save a couple frames where you can here. We picked up the dagger, which was used on the Black Panthers a moment ago, and if you kill the 3rd Black Panther at an appropriate time, it actually despawns the 2nd Black Panther that would normally run after you. We're unfortunately not able to take the bat boost that you see in Castlevania 1 NES, because it's the same type of screen here. This is a remake of a Sharp X68000 game, simply titled Castlevania, and it was a Japanese exclusive. So I wouldn't fault people for not being familiar with the game, both originally or on the PlayStation version, but I've actually been a fan since I was a kid. So yeah. So this is stage 1. We're going to be coming up to the bat boss here, and as a lot of you know, in Castlevania games, crosses tend to be overpowered. We've seen them in a lot of the earlier runs today, and you see them in a lot of different speed runs, but this is the one boss where we're essentially going to be using the time stop ability, or the stopwatch ability. And this is what RTA runners would do as well, but just simply optimized. What we're going to do here is we're going to freeze the bat because it would normally disperse into smaller bats, in which case you can't damage it. And the stopwatch prevents him from doing that. So simple jump attacks, and he's done. Like any traditional Castlevania game, or I guess typical Castlevania game, not all of them. We saw Drac X wasn't this, but we're going to want to dump all of our hearts prior to end of stage, because it does take time to watch the countdown. Yeah, that's stage 1. That's basically nothing too out there, nothing too outrageous. But stage 2 is kind of where the fruits of the labor is going to start to be seen, because we're going to force a cross drop, because as mentioned, cross is overpowered, and this game has the traditional double and triple sub-weapon systems that you see in other Castlevania games. So the green that you're seeing here actually impacts the RNG every frame, and I'm going to kill this bat on a very particular frame to force the cross drop right there. Immediately start killing enemies afterwards to build up the double and triple multiplier that I had mentioned. And you're going to see some tech here, a couple pieces of tech. You're seeing a combination of whip cancels, and you're also seeing sub-weapon throws while moving. So these are kind of combined. When you do a whip attack in air, if it's just a normal whip attack and you land, you actually pause for the duration of the animation. But a diagonal down or a downward whip animation doesn't have that factor, so you can immediately keep walking. Where this comes into play in terms of sub-weapons is the amount of frames left over in the whip animation is the amount of frames that you will be grounded and have to pause when throwing your sub-weapon. So essentially what you're doing here, and you'll see me doing a lot of whips in midair where there's no enemy or there's no, discernible reason per se. But what I'm doing actually is making sure that there's just one frame left in the whip animation so I can throw a sub-weapon while moving, like that. And in addition, you can also throw it backwards if you just turn around for one frame. So the cross has a really strange sound in this game. I'm sure you guys have probably picked up on it by now. We've got a little bit of a raft section here, and we're going to do it a TAS normally does best. We're going to have just some good old fun, and we're going to take out as many mermen as possible. We're going to ride the raft onto the little parts when it gets busted and do these little sliding crosses to take out as many as possible. But yeah, we've built up our triple. This is normally where the RTA run would be getting the cross. There is a cross in one of these candles here. So this is normally where you'd see the RTA run get the cross. You're going to see me do a whip cancel to set up the boss, and you're going to see the first example of what's called damage stacking. So bosses, when they take damage from every source that's overlaid on them all at once, as long as they're vulnerable. So 4 things, 2 things, 2 things. It was really quick. It was probably a little difficult to take in there, but overlaying the 3 crosses over the boss and then the whip means that it takes damage from all 4 of those sources. And then when it becomes vulnerable again, you basically want to have another cross and your whip, etc. over it again. So that's how we're going to be taking care of bosses in the run. Do we maybe want to sneak in a quick donation?
Sure, I can sneak in a quick donation, but I actually would like to do a call to an upcoming incentive that we have for a game coming up, Lost Judgment. The Yakuza series is very near and dear to my heart, and this one is a spin-off of the Yakuza series. We have an incredible incentive for a gauntlet boss rush, which means that at the end of the game, there is a specific mode unlocked where the runner will have to beat a whole bunch of challenges, speedrun challenges. It'll be difficult, it'll be strenuous, and they have to get it done in a certain time limit. So let's try and put donations towards that. We are $98,000 from having that met, but from everything I've seen at this event, I know that we can make it happen and it is possible of all of us. So let's get those donations coming in. Remember to check your incentives when you are making a donation towards Prevent Cancer Foundation. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely keep getting those donations in. It's a cause that's near and dear to my heart, so definitely keep donating. And don't forget those incentives, like mentioned. They're there. If you're going to be donating, you might as well put it towards an incentive and get some more games this week. So we're on to Block 3 here. Block 3 is a good chance to kind of touch on a couple differences between versions and why I'm using the JP version. The Japanese version has a larger hitbox for the cross as well as the dagger. Dagger's not going to be impactful, but the cross is really going to come into play. There's some small sections throughout, but the biggest reason it's going to make a difference is actually going to be for the boss at the end of this section here. Normally when the boss spawns, it doesn't attack, and it spawns in the top right corner, and there's no way that you can hit it in the North American version. You basically are subject to the boss's first attack, and you kind of just have to wait it out. Fortunately, in the JP version with the larger cross, you can hit it as soon as it spawns, and we're going to be seeing another really quick boss fight here. The stage, for the most part, has been a lot of the same here, minimizing jumps where possible. You're going to ride that section of the ice down because it makes this go a little bit faster. There's one section up here that instead of actually jumping off of a ledge right here, we're going to drop straight down, and that's because the fall animation, like the hard fall animation when you fall from a higher distance, takes a little bit longer than I would have wasted by walking off that ledge there. So yeah, we're coming up to the third boss. It's going to be another quick set of damage stacks. I'm going to influence his position with my position here, and blink and you miss it. So that was actually faster than it would take him to do one full attack. So on the North American version, if you had to wait out that one attack, basically, that one attack you would have been waiting for essentially would have been longer than that whole fight. There's another reason that Japanese is also useful, and that's Medusa's hitbox and iframes. Medusa's iframes are essentially broken in the Japanese version, and she doesn't really have any iframes as a result. That's going to be coming up here in the next stage. All right. I guess there's a couple other nuances I haven't really mentioned. Stairs, for example. Stairs, you want to climb at an optimal point. And what I mean by that is you can start pressing up prior to reaching the stairs. And actually 10 frames essentially can be lost by suboptimal stair climbing. And if you press up before Simon reaches the stairs, basically what happens is it pulls him into the stairs, but it does so at the rate that he climbs the stairs, which is slower than normal horizontal movement. So any set of stairs, you're basically going to see me getting as close as possible to the actual climb point to avoid that slower horizontal pull-in. Also, everyone's favorite Castlevania tune. If you needed to hear another version of it, here's another version of it. While there's literal bloody tears happening in the background. Another piece of tech that you're going to notice is you can actually stun enemies, and the moment that you stun them, you can actually get rid of their hitbox. So I didn't get damage from that knight there because he was stunned from the downward whip. Upcoming in this section, you're going to see a really, really useful damage boost. And this one's actually RTA viable. This is going to be really the only damage boost that you're going to see me doing in this TAS that RTA runners would replicate. The frame window is large enough that you can do that pretty easily, to be honest. But later, you're going to be seeing a lot more spicy damage boosts that are not something you would try. Stun locking the shattered glass enemy. All right. I mentioned Medusa's hitboxes. Normally you would see damage stacks, but this is where you're going to really see the crosses kind of do work. I don't know how to describe that other than she really just doesn't have iframes in this version. And a fun little cross hit there at the end to detonate her body. Orb. All right, we want to sneak in another donation between stages?
Absolutely. So, a beautiful $100 donation from Plato that says, "Hey folks, awesome run so far. Love the gauntlet of Castlevania games. Speaking of gauntlets, don't forget about Frub's Lost Judgment run coming up later and the incentive for the Gauntlet boss rush. That'll be an awesome run of all bosses of the game with all kinds of conditions and restrictions, not to be missed." I absolutely agree, Plato. We definitely love restrictions on our speedruns, so don't forget when you're donating to put it towards the incentive, especially the upcoming one of the Gauntlet boss rush with Lost Judgment. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're in the Clock Tower. Clock Tower is kind of like a staple of Castlevania. This is a pretty treacherous Clock Tower, I'm not going to lie. This is something that casually frustrated me because there's one set of stairs that kind of gets disrupted by the HUD, and it's not entirely clear as to where you're going. This is, again, you're reducing jumps where you can in any horizontal sections. You're going to see another case of damaging enemies here to avoid hitboxes. The stun time on that, or I guess the time in which their hitbox isn't present, is actually tremendously short. So you saw in the second one there, I actually used 2 sets of damage. I used the cross to get into the hitbox, and then I actually jumped out and then whipped downward. We're going to land here on this little screw for as long as possible. I guess that's kind of a screw. I don't know. But that spike ball is extremely deadly. And the Fleaman Cage. So the Fleaman Cage is kind of an RTA killer. There's a good chance one of those enemies will actually drop a dagger. So any RTA runners, I feel your pain on that one because that's rough. So I should mention as well, I mentioned at the very start of the run that original mode and arranged mode have a little bit differences in terms of damage and health. Essentially, original mode is 4 hits and you're dead, and that's basically the entirety of the game. Arranged mode starts a little more lenient, in which you can take more than 4 hits in some cases. So anytime I was doing damage boosts and there wasn't any health, I would have to kind of consider what damage boosts I wanted to take or what mandatory damage I kind of had to take along the way. Clock Tower is one that I feel like I almost worked myself into a corner when I was doing this task, because I started to get towards the end going, am I going to have enough health for this? Or, am I going to regret one of the earlier damage boosts? So on to Werewolf, small optimization. Again, we're using damage stacks here. Small optimization is actually forcing the werewolf to jump back down. So upon grabbing the object in the background, the werewolf can jump up to do an attack or jump down to do an attack, simply to hit as soon as possible. We're just going to basically make sure that the werewolf jumps downward. Boom. There's the stage done. And we got time for another quick donation.
Okay. Well, the puns don't stop on coming. We have Randis with $26 that said, why did Dracula take cold medication? To stop his coughing. I'll let that one sit with all of you for a little while. Thank you, Randis.
Alrighty. So we're on to block 6. I typically mess up and use the phrase stage because typically we refer to them as stages, but I mean, Castlevania actually operates in blocks in the sense that we have what we would normally consider a stage or an area is one block of separate stages, and like each piece of it is stages. It's really strange. We're going to see a frame perfect jump over a 3-tile gap there. That one is not mandatory. Obviously, you could take the stairs. We're not going to because it's slower. The reason I point that out, and the fact that that 3-tile gap is frame perfect, is because a little bit later in the run, there is a mandatory 3-tile gap that you have to do in the final stage. So again, RTA runners, good luck. Casual players, good luck. Konami, that's cruel. Nobody should be forced to do that. We're coming into my favorite section, though, in the Tower of Dolls. So this is kind of like the fruits of the labor when it comes to damage boosts. You're going to see some manipulation of enemy positions, and we're going to work our way up here, and we're going to basically take 3 damage boosts on the way up. You're also going to see, again, there's a sub-weapon throw while moving. It's worth noting that you can do that on stairs as well. It's not just exclusive to flat horizontal surfaces. But we're basically going to manipulate these dolls. I'm going to whip certain ones at certain times in certain places so they cooperate. And we're going to utilize them to skip stairs because stairs are slow. 1, 2. You would never try anything like this in RTA for obvious reasons. There's number 3. And we're on to the section of mirrors. It's a little bit of an odd section, but again, you're going to see minimizing of jumps. We're going to optimize the crosses. It's worth noting as well, you can whip twice. You saw there was 2 down whips there on that night. But you can actually, you have enough time in a jump that you can get 2 downward whips in a single jump. And we're on to Doppelganger. Damage stacks, name of the game. Started off with quad, double, and double. It's really not feasible. Like, you pretty much want to start every boss fight with a quad because you can have the 3 crosses on screen and you can overlay the whip. But after that, you're always going to have to rely pretty much on doubles because you're never going to have the ability to set up and align all of those crosses again for when the boss comes back into being vulnerable. It's not doable, right? But yeah, we can probably sneak in another quick donation here between stages.
Sure thing. Strizer, you're doing a fantastic job. I'm really enjoying this run, so just wonderful. Very entertaining.
Thank you.
Oh, God. Let's see. I have a whole string of pun donations, but we'll read one for the time being. I do like this one very much. Simply C donates $250 saying, like Alucard said, the only thing necessary for cancer to triumph is for good people to not donate. So here's to fighting cancer and taking one step closer to a cancer-less world. I very much agree, Simple C. What a way to put it. It couldn't be more canon than that.
Definitely. So we're on to block 7 here. This is our second last block, and you're going to see kind of some optimizations here in hitting enemies with the cross. This is kind of a section where, again, my whips are meant to only have 1 frame of animation left when I land, thus allowing me to do the sub-weapon throw while moving. And yeah, I just got that weird bone crawling enemy there at the top of the last screen. The game almost feels, I would say, like from a casual perspective, when I used to play this as a kid, it feels almost a little unintuitive, because if you've played Super Castlevania 4, you know you can kind of whip in all directions. And you can whip down, both straight down and diagonally, but you can't up whip in Castlevania Chronicles, which arguably is probably the most useful. Again, we're taking a damage boost there off the spikes, because waiting is slow. We've got some spiky bone jump ropes, sure, and a little spike trap. The stage all around is just kind of like traps packed in absolutely everywhere. You've got swinging blades, you've got blades coming out of the ground, you've got blades on things that are swinging around things. The Axe Knights as well, it's worth noting that their shields are actually functional. So you kind of have to actually hit them. Another sub-weapon throw there while moving. It's worth noting as well, you see the cross as you move when you're doing that, because normally obviously you'd have feet planted when you're throwing across. If you notice when you're doing the moving sub-weapon throw, the cross kind of spawns behind you, which is really useful because it can actually be used to hit enemies behind you. Cross there meant to delay the enemy so we can safely get up the stairs. And really fortunate with our projectile spawns that we can get just around everything. I highly recommend this game, by the way, if you haven't played it and you like your traditional, 2D Castlevania platformers. There's a backwards cross throw there to take care of the blood skeleton. I highly recommend giving it a try. You don't necessarily have to seek out or source out the Japanese version to enjoy it casually. I believe last time I checked, the RTA boards are split between versions even, so if you did want to pursue running the game, the board should be all divided and fair, which is nice. But it's, I want to say almost a lost experience, because you hear so much about Soten for good reason. It's an amazing game, but I wouldn't doubt there's a large percentage of you out there that didn't even know there was another PlayStation 1 Castlevania game. So maybe give it a try. Coming up with death, we're gonna dump some crosses here because we don't need them. Again, we're gonna damage stack. And death's iframes, I wish I understood. So most of the bosses, I have clear explanation on how the iframes work. They either work properly, or like Medusa, they just don't work at all. A couple fun crosses. But Death's iframes, essentially, you can do multiple hits before it activates, is how it feels. So the quad started with normal quad damage, but then you saw the crosses did additional ticks of damage before I jumped in and did the additional attacks. So it seems like as the iframes activate, he is still vulnerable for a short period of time for some reason. I'm not sure why on that one, to be completely honest. But we're approaching the end. We're at block 8. So block 8 is extremely aggressive, and also has a really good soundtrack. The game has a really good soundtrack, both in original mode and arrange mode. Arrange mode has totally different music. I didn't touch on that either. Again, moving sub-weapon throws here, so you're going to see whip cancels. You're going to see movement through enemies while they're stunned, so we're getting rid of their hitbox. You're going to see some damage boosts, some save as little as 6 frames. You're going to see this Shield Knight, which is extremely frustrating. It took me a long time to make sure that he didn't block my cross there. But this whole section is just a gauntlet of enemies before the boss. You're going to see a little tight jump here over the ball and chain. And the cross actually stuns that enemy, so the ball and chain doesn't hit you. So there's a lot of kind of like little intricacies at play here. The 6 frame damage boost that I mentioned is coming up right here. Should be the next chandelier, is it? There we go. Yeah, 6 frames. Woo! You're gonna see, remember I mentioned the mandatory 3-tile frame perfect jump? That's in Batbridge. So yeah, that's just cruel. So it's fine for casual, or it's fine, sorry, for arranged mode where you have that 3-frame buffer when you're walking off ledges, but it was just back there a second ago. This should look pretty familiar. You're gonna see a nice damage boost here, coming up off one of these, I don't know if they're technically called Persephone in this game. Looks like Persephone in other games. And you're gonna have a nicely timed invincibility jar with the music right here. That was a happy accident. I wish I could claim that was on purpose, but that just happened by accident, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So again, more utilizations, making sure that we're not whipping horizontally when we're hitting the ground, using those diagonals, using the downward whips. Now, the pattern that Dracula is going to give me was actually locked in at the start of the stage. Nothing I've done during the stage has impacted the pattern he's going to give me, but we're going to be damage stacking crosses over his head for first phase, and then again, damage stacking kind of in a triangular pattern for phase 2. So phase 1 is going to be 2 large stacks, and then we're going to have just a short amount of damage in the third bit when he reappears. I wish we could get this into 2 cycles, but it's just not feasible. Backwards cross there. And here comes the end of phase 1. I will say get ready on time as well. TAS timing ends on last input. It doesn't end on the orb grab like you would expect with an RTA run. So I'll call it out here. And time. So normally in an RTA run, you'd expect obviously to jump and grab the orb because orb grab is the end, but the jump into the middle to actually grab the orb itself is considered time. And if I actually jumped afterwards, it would make the task longer. I'm not sure what it shows on the RTA side of things. It's a little hard to time, but the exact task timing for the run is 25:56.02. And yeah, this is Castlevania Chronicles original mode TAS. This is my second TAS that I've ever published. I did one previous, which was Castlevania Legends for Game Boy, and actually ended up being a lot more difficult. I thought it was going to be easier because I'm like, oh, let's just pick something easy, start with Game Boy, you know, minimal input options. But yeah, Castlevania Chronicles, highly recommend checking it out. Big shout outs again, and thank you to GDQ for having me and allowing me to showcase this. I know they've kind of relaxed their rules around accepting TAS runs recently, which I think is awesome for the community. Big shout outs to the TAS community as well. Everyone that I interacted with in, you know, publishing these, this one and my previous one, absolutely great to deal with. If you haven't checked out the new TAS Videos site, check it out. Looks phenomenal. They just dropped it recently. And keep on donating because the cause is near and dear to my heart. I have family members that have been touched by it. I have friends that have been touched by it as well. I'm on the board for Game Over Cancer, and I run their speedrun events for the cause. So I always love when I can participate in events like this that hit really so close to home. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the marathon, and yeah, keep up the good work.
Well, that was an absolutely impressive run. It's always so nice to see TASBot doing its thing and just being a learning lesson for all of us of how we may never match the ability of a TASBot. Incredible. Nevertheless, a big shout out to Strizer for that. That was incredible. Well, let's see. I do have like a whole list of like Castlevania donations, but I think I'm gonna have to cut it down to these ones. I feel like really, I don't know. We've done a lot of puns. I kind of want to do something a little bit wholesome now. $75 from Sigmatic Saki that says, I dedicate this donation to my bestie from the other side of the globe, Guiltless, who I've met through Castlevania, and we've been watching GDQ together for years and counting. Here's to many more years of vampire hunting with you. You're the best. Less than 3. Aw, I love it when gaming brings people together. Not to mention how gaming is bringing all of us here today to raise money for Prevent Cancer Foundation AGDQ 2022 has been such a blast so far. And speaking about cancer, donation from Slayer here, $20 that reads, "Love Castlevania. Let's put a stake through the heart of cancer." I couldn't agree more, Slayer. This has been quite the block. It has been so much fun to hang out here and watch all the Castlevania runs and receive all the puns and references and love. Shout out to all of you who are donating and making these incentive possibles, including the upcoming ones. But you know, this is my cue for the end of my hosting shift here at AGDQ 2022 online. If there is any community on the internet that can make you laugh, cry, and truly warm your heart, it is this one. My name is Ashewyn, and I'm delighted to be passing it on to your next host, strizer86. You're going to be in great hands. So enjoy the rest of the marathon. And oh, don't bat an eye, because we'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, everybody. I'm your friendly neighborhood strizer86, and I'll be on the host desk for the next couple of hours. We have a $50 donation from VOD saying, "GDQ has always been a highlight in the year for me. I'm proud to see what gamers can do for the world. Let's keep pushing and stay awesome." Thank you so much for your donation, VOD. I really appreciate it. And remember, all donations go to benefit the Prevent Cancer Foundation. Folks, now we have a live interview. We have ADEF interviewing Procyon, the runner of Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Hello, awesome games done quick 2022 online. My name is ADEF, and we are joined by Procyon, who will be running Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. I hope you all enjoyed the Castlevania block, but we are here with Procyon. Procyon, how are you feeling?
I'm really excited for this, but also pretty nervous. Long-time viewer, first-time runner.
We love a long time, first time, and Procyon, you gotta know, I am just absolutely pumped for this run. I and so many others have played Keep Talking casually, and I think we're all really excited to find out what it means to speedrun. So, you ready for some questions?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Okay, so my first question is about the way in which you're playing, Procyon, because you're actually playing alone, and I know a lot of people sort of know Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes as a team game where you defuse bombs with friends that are looking at the manual for you. So can you tell me a little bit about what it means to play the game alone?
Absolutely. So like you just said, the way most people play the game is that one person looks at the bomb and all the puzzles on it, and then the other person looks at the manuals to solve all those puzzles, and the two people can't look at what the other person is seeing. And they have to communicate with each other the information on the bomb and then the solution to the puzzle.
Right.
The other way you can play this game is known as experting for myself, which is EFM. You're going to hear that initialism quite a bit. And when you EFM, you have the bomb on, for me, it's the bomb on one screen and all the manuals on the other. And I get to take notes and look at all the manuals and turning back and forth from all of the puzzles to all of the solutions. And I put in all the inputs, and it's just a single person playing the game.
That's awesome. It's so exciting to see a game showcased in a very different way. Procyon, so you are running a category called the Centurion. And we're not talking about the Roman soldier per se, but rather about the number of modules. Can you tell me a little bit about the Centurion versus what, maybe a viewer at home saw when they played Keep Talking for the first time?
Yes. So if you have the vanilla game downloaded, the hardest mission is called I Am Hardcore, which has 11 modules. The Centurion has 100 modules, like a century, and 100 modules in 100 minutes. It's actually 99 modded modules created by the modding community for the game. The first 99 modded modules, and then 2 modules from the base game. And that is a grand total of 101 modules, 100 of which are solvable in an hour, 40 minutes. It is huge. It is super scary to look at, and it is so much fun.
I think it's really funny when you tune into like a Centurion run, the bomb is just like the size of the screen and you literally have to like zoom in on the modules. So on that note, Procyon, as far as the manual goes, how many of these modules would you say you just know the different solutions memorized, and how many are you referencing the manual?
So in terms of memorization, I know how all of the modules work. Like the manual gives all the steps, and I have memorized the steps. What I usually need the manual for is to look up information. Like if there's a certain color that's red, I need to change that into green, and I need to look up in the manual to understand that that's the specific color change occurring.
Sure.
So in terms of just fully memorization, don't need the manual at all. It's actually probably surprisingly small. I'd say it's along the lines of certainly not more than 15.
Wow. Okay. Gamers, it's going to be an expert memorization showcase. And, it's worth noting that the modules do have different presets every time. So it's not like Procyon sees the same exact setup every time. The modules are in different stages. But Procyon, this is such a heavy concentration-based run. I've seen your PB, and you're relatively quiet, just sort of speaking out loud things here and there for yourself. Are you going to be commentating this run while you play?
No, I have some other experts who have their own great achievements in the game, other Centurion completers and other Big Bomb enjoyers. They're going to be commentating for me. I'm actually going to be completely silent, deafened to the commentary. I'm going to give an intro, and I'm going to give an outro, and that's about it.
Oh, I'm so excited. It's going to be like a real tense bomb defusal. And my last question, don't think too hard about it, but I'm curious, what is your favorite module and what is your least favorite module?
Well, my background is largely in math, so I'm a big fan of all the math-based modules.
Sure.
The modules that I don't like are the ones that are really slow. Like, for example, there's a slot machine that gives different red, green, and blue colors and then different symbols on it, and you have to determine, is this a winning combination of the slot machine? And if so, you have to push a button that says, yes, I'd like to keep these slots, I win. But it's very random, and you can either take about 10 seconds on the module if the first configuration it gives you is good, or you can take upwards of 90 seconds on the module if the 4 combinations it gives you are all bad. So I'm not a fan of that element of RNG and also being very slow.
Right.
But
it is what it is.
It is what it is, yes.
Well, Procyon, thank you so much for joining us. Gamers, you are not going to want to miss the Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes Centurion run. It is literally like my most anticipated run of the event. When I saw this interview on the schedule, I was like, I want that one. So thank you, Procyon, and stay tuned, gamers. Half-Life 2 is right after this. Don't go anywhere. There's more speed gaming coming right up. I've been ADEF, and we'll see you around.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everyone, welcome back. That was a wonderful interview. We have $25 from Anonymous saying, Anonymous donates $25 with no comment. Seriously, like they actually said no comment in the comment section. Anyway, $25. Thank you very much. And we have $300 from Cran with no comment. Cran, thank you so much for the $300. Folks, we are ready. I've been given the go-ahead to start Half-Life 2, any %, no void clip by Maltamiller. Maltamiller, it's all yours.